Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation. It's so good to be together with you here in person and online. My name is Ayana Kafi, and I am one of today's worship associates. Our minister, Reverend Christina Branum-Martin, is in the pulpit today, and we are gifted with the music of our choir, the leadership of our choir director, Kathy Middleman, our pianist, Bruce King, and our storytellers, as well as our AV team, who puts it all together. Yeah. We're so grateful for everyone involved in today's service. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. Whatever your skin color, whatever your class background, whatever your range of abilities, you are welcome here. We are so glad that you chose our congregation as your place of worship this morning. We come together for worship in order to slow down and listen for the callings of our hearts and our spirits. We come together for worship so we can be reminded of our highest aspirations and continue to transform ourselves into our best selves. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. After service, we gather for coffee and social connection in the fellowship hall, right down the hall on the right, so please join us. This morning, Amara will be reading our chalice lighting words.
Now we pause to light our chalice as a symbol of our shared Unitarian Universalism faith. With these words by Reverend Jordan McKean, deep calls onto deep, joy calls onto joy, light calls onto light. Let the kindling of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of love, of peace, of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less, we pledge ourselves to be the bearers of the light wherever we are.
It's my kid. In the spirit of love and beloved community, let's share in our congregational affirmation. We need not think alike to love alike. Now, let's greet and welcome each other to this new day. Those in the sanctuary, feel free to move around and offer greetings. And for those of you online, please use the chat to introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see the energy and connection and smiles on people's faces as they greet one another. I'm Reverend Christina Branum-Martin. It is so good to be with you today. I share these opening words called One Love by Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we chose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best as we can. We are one, working and eating and laughing and playing, singing, storytelling, sharing and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks and opening up. We are questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand and struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, living, listening, and learning to love our neighbors, and ultimately learning to love ourselves. Apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace. Creating one beloved community together, we are one. On this day where we come together to honor the memory specifically of Martin Luther King Jr., we also look forward, not just backwards, but forward from this time as we together create the world in which we believe in so deeply. Let's sing together number 155, Circle Round for Freedom. Stand with your heart and soul and spirit. I forgot, so I apologize. Thank you. As Leslie McLean comes up to read our joys and sorrows and concerns, know that we have so many today. And so join us together with joy and happiness that we are here in community. And Leslie is there you are. It goes all the way to the second page and more. Okay.
All right. All right, now we pause and reflect on matters of the heart. Thank you, Amara, for placing the stones. For this morning's ritual, we have water and we have river stones. The stones are smooth and the stones have weight. They're indicative of both life's pleasures and times of ease, as well as life's burdens and times of heaviness. The water receives these stones with ease and calmness. Each week, you are invited to write a joy, sorrow, or concern in this book, or email it to pastoralcare@emersonuu.org to be read. If you're online, we invite you to recreate this at home. You place a stone in a bowl of water to honor what is in your heart. We begin by placing 4 stones. First, in honor of the Cherokee and Muskogee nations of indigenous peoples who lived here before us. Next, for those wrongly enslaved here who labored on this land. Next, for all of those killed or injured by gun violence in this country. And for all those hurting in current conflicts and wars that rage across our globe. Within our community, we share that. From Susan Tomachek, I had surgery that removed a cancerous node in my neck. I am now home from the hospital. The doctor says that as of surgery, I am cancer-free. This has been a long, painful, and confusing journey for me. I am still not feeling well. However, my Emerson family has been there at every step. Thank you with love to Art, Susan, and Reverend Christina. I welcome your texts and cards. We have a joy from Kiriana. Kiriana had a birthday this week and got a baby king snake. From Carolyn Hadaway's granddaughter. Carolyn would like her Emerson family to know that she is doing well and has moved to a new house. Her new address is in Realm, her phone number is unchanged, and she welcomes calls from friends. From Rebecca Edwards, please hold in your hearts the Yamamotos, Grace, Alba Halpins, Lisa Reynolds, and her parents, Dana Andrews, the Spellmans, and so many others of my chosen family, and all those who have lost their homes in the Eaton and Pacific Palisades fires. From Ginger Husinkfeld, it is a joy to reclaim my maiden name, pronounced pretty close to whose sink cells. To spell it, break it into the Usinkveld. So much more me than white ever was. A joy from the Reverend Jeff Jones. Yesterday, I completed 6 consecutive days on Marietta Square with my sign, Immigrants Make America Great. The people responding have been overwhelmingly positive. From Annabelle, me and my mom and sister got a new dog on Wednesday. His name is Tuxedo Max. From Chloe and Seth, my granduncle and Seth's great-granduncle, Marcus Garvey, just received a presidential pardon posthumously from President Biden. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were inspired by him. MLK said, "He was the first man on a mass scale and level to give millions of Black people a sense of dignity and destiny." I was going to share concerns about my aunt and former mother-in-law in hospital, but thought I would share this joy instead. From Gregory, our cat Amelia is going into surgery on Tuesday. For all of those joys, sorrows, and concerns that were not written here and read aloud, may be too close to mention, let us hold them all in our hearts. In thankful awareness, let's say the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. Please read the words with me that are printed in the order of service. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be free from harm and suffering. May we all be well in body, heart, and mind. May we all be at peace. Blessed be.
Good morning. I'm Mary Miller, and I'm the co-chair of the Social Justice Leadership Team. One way we put our prayer of loving kindness into action is by partnering with other organizations who work to bring love, kindness, and justice to the world. Our Share the Basket partner for January is Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, or GIPL for short. GIPL is an interfaith environmental nonprofit whose mission is to engage communities of faith in the stewardship of our natural environment as a direct expression of our faith and as a religious response to global climate change, resource depletion, environmental injustice, pollution, and other disruptions in the natural world. For over 20 years, GIPL has worked to inspire and equip congregations to engage in faith-based environmental action. To date, GIPL has partnered with over 600 congregations and over 100 green teams, helping them implement practical climate solutions on site and advocate for environmentally just policies at the local, state, and federal levels. We are pleased to acknowledge the strong connections Emerson has had with GIPL for more than a decade. GIPL has been a consistent source of inspiration for us as we explore the connections between our spiritual lives and our care for the environment. With GIPL's encouragement, Emerson has become a greener congregation, helping us reduce our use of electricity, conserve water, and completely eliminate our use of natural gas in this building. We fully support GIPL's work with the faith communities throughout Georgia. The basket will now be passed. For those in the sanctuary, as the basket is passed, feel free to offer a donation or take a card in the basket or from the basket for other ways to give. For those online, go to emersonuu.org and select the Giving tab to donate. All donations, unless otherwise specified, are shared equally between Emerson and our partner organizations.
Can you hear me? Oh, you can. Very nice. Good morning, good morning. Can I have the young and the young at heart come join us for our story? So I want to tell you about this story first because, as you know, we have a children's library, and our story today comes out of our social justice section. So anyone who wants to go in and browse a social justice kind of story, go do that because we have quite a few in that section. But today's story is called Change Sings, a children's anthem. And would you hold the mic for me?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. It's by Amanda Gorman. I can hear change humming. It is loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing a song. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mystery, I sing with all the planet and its hills of history. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts, take a knee to make a stand. I am bright as the light each day brings. There is love where my change sings. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. Heaven only knows that's true. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distances from where and how we came, I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings where? There, inside me, because I'm the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the waves starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along? All right. So, question, what kind of change would you like to see in the world? No wars. That would be a great change, right? What do you think? Oh,
No violence.
no violence. Good. So, okay, so we're all not 18 or older yet, right? So what can you do to make a change in this world? Pick up trash. Make it more beautiful. Good, good. What? Oh. Help the homeless. Yeah, there's lots of things we can do.
There's stuff that we don't use anymore to people who actually need it.
Very good. Donate your things to people who need it. So tomorrow's a big day. Oh, one more. Buy someone a meal. That's a great thing to do. See, you already know all this stuff. You're so good. But tomorrow, I want you to think of one thing you can do during the week to make a change. Okay? And then next Sunday, I want you to come tell me what you did. I'm going to check up on you. All right? So you got a homework assignment. All right, shall we sing our song of dedication?
To
Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of justice, who befriends those who stand upon the constant edge of decision, crucial and alone, we are grateful to be together this morning. We gather especially to remember the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King, but not only him, for there were thousands of unnamed people who put their bodies and lives on the line so that all may be free. And yet freedom comes with a cost, and we know that racism and homophobia, ageism and ableism, sexism and classism, all of these unacknowledged realities prevent us from fully knowing one another. They prevent us from knowing and experiencing beloved community, spoken by the prophets and ordinary people alike. Today, we pray from our hearts and our deepest wishes for our world that the work of Dr. King continue to eradicate injustice, wherever and whenever we encounter it. Our prayers are that we may continue to speak out against injustice, to speak even if we are afraid and unable to say our words. We pray that we will be heard and welcomed, and may these prayers continue to flow through our daily living. May we find the courage of Dr. King as we continue to stand up for justice and reconciliation and truth, despite challenge, despite the voices of so many who speak otherwise. Dr. King went to the mountaintop and he said he saw that promised land, and he reassured that we will get there one day. We pray that this may not be a paradisal dream, but a reality in our own time. May it be so. Amen. The words we will share in a moment are words from years in the past. Words of Martin Luther King Jr., of Fannie Lou Hamer, of Bayard Rustin and Ella Baker.
When an individual is protesting society's refusal to acknowledge his dignity as a human being, his very act of protest confers dignity on him. Bayard Rustin.
Sometimes it seems like to tell the truth today is to run the risk of being killed. But if I fall 5 feet and 4 inches forward in the fight for freedom, and I'm not backing off. Fannie Lou Hamer.
We need in every Bay community a group of angelic troublemakers. Bayard Rustin.
Nobody's free until everybody's free. Fannie Lou Hamer.
When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. Martin Luther King Jr.
I guess if I'd had any sense, I'd have been a little scared to register to vote. But what was the point of being scared? The only thing they could do was kill me, and I kind of seemed like they'd been trying to do that a little bit at a time since I could remember. Fannie Lou Hamer.
We have deluded ourselves into believing the myth that capitalism grew and prospered out of the Protestant ethic of hard work and sacrifice. The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of Black slaves and continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both Black and white, both here and abroad. Martin Luther King Jr.
You didn't see me on television. You didn't see news stories about me. The kind of role that I tried to play was to pick up the pieces or put together pieces out of which I hoped organizations might come. My theory is strong people don't need strong leaders. Ella Baker.
A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Martin Luther King Jr.
Oppressed people, whatever their level of formal education, have the ability to understand and interpret the world around them, to see the world for what it is, and to move to transform it. Ella Baker.
The problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power. Martin Luther King Jr.
And the last, I have always thought that what is needed is the development of people who are interested not in being leaders as much as in developing leadership in others. Ella Baker. Thank you. I was so struck as I read these that these are decades old, and yet they feel like they were written for today. Brings a tear to my eye, actually. I want to share a poem with you by an indigenous poet, Joy Harjo. Imagine sitting at a kitchen table. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we eat to live. And the gifts of earth are brought and prepared and set on the table, and so it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens and dogs away from the table, and babies even teethe at the corners, and they scrape their knees under it. It is here, at the table, where children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make our lives at the table. We make men and women and people. At this table, we gossip, we recall enemies, and even share the ghost of lovers. Our dreams, drink coffee, and we put our arms around our children, and they laugh with us at our poor, falling down selves, and as we put ourselves back together. That table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror and a place to celebrate terrible victory. We've given birth on this table, and we have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy and with sorrow, and we pray of suffering, remorse, and we give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at this kitchen table while we are laughing and crying and eating of the last bite. As I read this poem about this kitchen table in which all of life lives, I think of all the tables here in this congregation, the places where we gather. I think of our board meetings, our listening circles, our book clubs, our potlucks, our cottage meetings, our game nights, and our religious education classes where kids color. I think of coffee hour and the fellowship hall with a cup of coffee where we sit and linger just a little longer together before we go back to the week. And that time is so special before we go off to our religious education classes, both for adults and children. It is around these tables where we become rooted in relationship with each other. These people at the table are the ones we love, the people we share our community with, and the people we are accountable to. And there is a table where the social justice team meets every month to connect us more deeply and to think of ways to broaden our connections to the community at large. And this table and all the tables is where we share our visions and our dreams for the world in which we dream of. In challenging times, a list so long that I'm not going to even list them, except for the angst and sorrow I feel in my heart. In times such as today, these tables are where we build beloved community. Our Unitarian Universalist President, Sophia Betancourt, reflects that beloved community is where we find ourselves both pulled outward to the actions we hope will make a difference in the world, and inward toward the relationships of communal care from which those actions will arrive. Betancourt reminds us that our faith calls us to find strength in each other in hard times. She says, "We are a sanctuary people, a people who aim to create safety for both body and soul within our communal spaces. We are a faithful people, drawn to communal care not just by our ethics, but by our history and our religious traditions. Our congregations and communities are rare places where we can come and be vulnerable. Vulnerable in a way that we can build trust and find the capacity for resistance for that which is outside the door. And this is why we as Unitarian Universalists are called to build up and sustain community. It is the greatest tool for resilience. History reminds us that people of faith and conscience have been essential to every movement safeguarding equity and human dignity in all of history. So we gather at our tables, where we sit with our beloveds, and we answer the call of justice making over and over again. It calls us sometimes to the halls of power. Recently, I went to speak at the Capitol building with my clerical collar on. And I know some here have gone to the detention camps and the prison cells to connect from heart to heart from one human being to another. And sometimes even we hold up a sign, alone, quietly standing for what we know we need to see in the world. Justice making starts with relationships, and they start over cups of hot coffee, around a table, circled up and sharing our hopes and dreams for the world. So whenever you can, pull up a chair, sit around the table and connect and share your lives and dreams for what you hope to see for yourself, for your neighbors, and for our children. Our children are off school and many of us have off work, for tomorrow is the day that this country honors the history and work and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. And as we do so, there is a temptation to imagine a charismatic and gifted single person who single-handedly moved a generation forward to justice. And yes, he was gifted indeed, and his contributions were profound. I am still moved and so lucky to be in the city where the National Monument for Martin Luther King and his wife are placed. But it is so important to remember that Dr. King sat around a fair number of kitchen tables. A poet wrote, "Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children, and when our dreams laugh with us at our poor falling down selves, and as we put ourselves back together, we sit at that table." Reverend Molly Hoosh Gordon said that King certainly sat at a lot of tables, and he consulted with colleagues, and he dreamed with friends, and he grieved with loved ones, but he did not create the civil rights movement alone. There were thousands of people and tables across the South, organizers of less renown who gathered to plot and plan and organize for justice. And the story of that movement is not one single person. It was the story of a collective. It was the story of creating beloved community. So as we gather tomorrow, I hope that we will recognize not only the hero's journey, but a legacy of good works and an entire movement. Reverend House Gordon reminds us as we reflect on King to recall that the narrative of the hero's journey to collective justice is the product of the idea of white supremacy, setting us up to believe that the only great and gifted are worthy to lead, and that our isolation and success is that community is something that isn't needed. It's all about you. But it is the interconnections between us and those cups of coffee around the table that help us see into each other's hearts, that help us see what we can be. The retelling of the civil rights movement stories and other social movements help us see that in our current day and in all the justice work that we do, we need to rise up with each other hand in hand. It's not about just one person, it's about all of us together. There's a term that a lawyer, Dean Spade, said called social entrepreneurship. And he said it's tossed around these days. It's the idea that the right person at the right place needs to be in a position of power. For example, imagine somebody who went to Harvard Business School and has the vision to make changes into the future. But it is the imagination of this person, not the power in which they stand, that helps us see that it's not the charismatic individual, but it's about how change is made in community. That is completely the opposite of everything we think of when we think of one leader. Real expertise in leadership is about transforming the masses into a coordinated movement together that changes the world. So if we look back on the civil rights movement, this is what we see now. The stories of masses of African American activists and citizens and neighbors and allies who came to work with them, experts in their fields, organizing together, sitting in, marching and boycotting and door knocking. Doesn't that sound a lot like what we did in this last election cycle? We've got to keep doing it. Yes, King was at the head of that march, but there were hundreds behind him. There were students and clergy. There were people making sandwiches in the kitchens. There were pews in which people slept at night in churches along the way of those marches, and there were dozens of people like Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer who organized behind the scenes. And there were thousands of ordinary folks ready to risk their lives. In today's justice movements, we see a deep commitment to the same approach. Diffuse and network leadership that is concerned far less for that one key figure and far more about uplifting leaders. This goes a lot against what we see on TV right now. Some of the leaders we see are very self-centered. It's all about them. But I want to remind you that that kitchen table where we build relationships and sit across from each other and build leadership in each other and give our children the spark of justice and the dream for what they want to see. This is what is moving Black Lives Matter movements and trans activism and disability movements. Folks who know in their bones that they will only live fully if true justice comes about together. Our dominant culture tries to teach us a different story, and as a person who had the opportunity myself for education, who identifies as white and middle class, I know that I have been taught that I didn't need anyone else, but I know it's not the case. The systemic problems of which we live in and we are trying to raise our children and raise each other is that the truth of it is that I cannot live in isolation. I am connected to you and you are connected to me. I know that it is not my fault that I was socialized to think this way, but it is my responsibility to learn better and to do it differently. So here's the good news. The good news is that if there is not space at the table for you now, we will build a bigger table. We will make space and we will pour a cup of hot coffee and we will bring you a plate of cookies. So find yourself a spot at any table here at Emerson and there will be room for you. And we want to know what it is you dream of. Let's ask each other, what is it that you need to thrive? Let's ask each other what's possible. And yes, we can say what's wrong and we can gripe and we can complain, but let's keep turning it around over and over again to what are your dreams for the world and how can I help you make that happen? Let us be brave. Let us be intrigued by the different answers we hear, because as our affirmation is, we need not think alike to love alike. I want to be intrigued by how your dreams are different than mine. I want to be surprised and I want to treasure curiosity. And most of all, I want to believe in human goodness. I need that belief. So this Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, I ask you to make a spot at the table, find a seat, come together, let's talk. Let's deepen our relationships. Let's organize. Let's let the legacy of Martin and Malcolm and Bayard and Rosa and Ella and Fanny and our Unitarian Universalism come into being. May that be a circle that grows and grows outward. May it be so.
I just finished an audiobook biography of Audre Lorde, Survival is a Promise. It was a 17-hour and 41-minute dive into the life of Lorde, her friends, companions, students, chosen family. Lorde was an incredible archivist of her own life, a dedicated letter writer, and a deeply political person, believing both in the power of the collective as well as her own individual role in her justice work. She believed in poetry and following her own true north. And if I had the opportunity to sit at the kitchen table with her, I would ask what she makes of the moment that we're in, our current social and political climate, and how we should use our voices to meet this moment. And if I am sure that we will survive this moment, what does that survival look like? Our reading is from Learning from the 60s by Audre Lorde. This is from a speech delivered at Harvard University by Lorde in 1982. There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. Malcolm knew this. Martin Luther King Jr. knew this. Our struggles are particular, but we are not alone. Within each of us, there is some piece of humanness that knows that we are not being served by the machine that orchestrates crisis after crisis and is grinding all of our futures into dust. If we are to keep the enormity of the forces aligned against us from establishing a false hierarchy of oppression, we must school ourselves to recognize that any attack against Blacks, any attack against women is an attack against all of us who recognize that our interests are not being served by the systems we support. Each one of us is here in a link of connection between the anti-poor legislation, gay shootings, the burning of synagogues, street harassments, attacks against women, and resurgent violence against Black people. I ask myself, as well as each one of you, exactly what alteration of the particular fabric of my everyday life does this connection call for? Survival is not a theory. Decisions to cut aid for the terminally ill, for the elderly, for the dependent children, for food stamps, even school lunches, are being made by men with full stomachs who live in comfortable houses with 2 cars and umpteen tax shelters. None of them go hungry to bed at night. Can any one of us here still afford to believe that efforts to reclaim the future can be private or individual? Can anyone here still afford to believe that the pursuit of liberation can be the sole or particular province of any one particular race or sex or age or sexuality or class? Revolution is not a one-time event. It's becoming always vigilant for the smallest opportunity to make a genuine change in established, outgrown responses. For instance, it is learning the addresses of each other's different, it's learning to address each other's difference with respect. We share a common interest, survival, and it cannot be pursued in isolation from others simply because their differences make us uncomfortable. We know what it is to be lied to. The 60s should teach us how important it is not to lie to ourselves, not to believe that the revolution is a one-time event or something that happens around us rather than inside of us. Not to believe that freedom can belong to any one group of us without others also being free. Now, please rise in body or voice as we join together in song. This hymn is 151, I Wish I Knew How.
Martin Luther King Jr. gave the eulogy at the funeral of Reverend James Reeb, a Unitarian Universalist minister who was killed in the Civil Rights Movement and the March to Selma. He said, "May we participate in the continuous creation of a vision that inspires people to hold noble and courageous living. May we share actively in the adventure of trying to forge spiritual ties that will bind together humanists together in peace." May these words on our lips recommit us to this sacred pledge, and by the work of our hands and the beating of our hearts, may we commit day by day to build that beloved community made real for all. That is my prayer, deep from within my heart to you. May these words serve you as you move forward in this day. Amen.
As our chalice is extinguished this morning, I'm sorry. Say the chalice, I'm saying the chalice extinguishing words now. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. All right. See the back of your order of service for the second hour activities, and also see the flyer from the Committee on Healthy Ministries. They will hold an important discussion group next Sunday. As our service ends, go now in peace and take peace wherever you go.